That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about Bad Boys, Ride or Die, the fourth film in the Bad Boys franchise, the sixth film directed by Adil Bilall and Bilal Fallah, also known as Adil and Bilal. Sony Pictures releasing is allowing everyone to see it on June 7th, 2024.
Am I familiar with these directors' other works?
Well, we reviewed Bad Boys for Life, which we gave a poor review to and caused, we got a lot of vitriol for that.
It was the talk of all of Europe and Cannes.
Yes, Faye, it certainly was. I still haven't seen one of their early films, which I remember being at the Toronto Film Festival, called Black. I did see, they did a film in between these two Bad Boys movies called Rebel, which is at the Cannes Film Festival in 2022 in the midnight section, which I remember thinking was decent, and I think it better shows what their skills are than either of these Bad Boys movies do.
What is this film about? When their former captain is implicated in corruption, two Miami police officers have to work to clear his name. What is your pull quote?
Boring, corny, and tiresome. Smith and Lawrence aimlessly resuscitate renowned characters of a bygone era in a vain, worthless cash grab franchise entry. Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they're tired of you?
Mine. A couple of good action sequences and a handful of funny lines aren't enough to make this trite installment worth the price of admission. I did not care for this thing.
Oh, it is flat, to say the least.
I mean, I haven't rewatched any of the other ones for obvious reasons, but my memory of them, I mean, it doesn't feel like this franchise has grown at all.
Well, no, and
it doesn't feel fresh.
No, and I do think, I think the first 1995 film has some nostalgic glee to it, but I don't like Michael Bay, who did the first two, as a director or a creative in any sense. But
who makes a cameo in this film?
Yeah, so I don't know. These just probably aren't for me anyway, but
I remember liking the Bad Boys 2 soundtrack.
Well, yeah, that's...
Okay, what is this movie about? So the captain who was killed in Bad Boys 3 by Will Smith's son, Armando.
Joe Pantoliano.
He is being framed for some corruption because he had information that would implicate some officials within the Miami Police Department with being in collusion with the cartel, like the drug cartel. So Will Smith and Martin Lawrence are still Miami police officers, and when they find out that their deceased former boss is being framed, they want to clear his name because like a trigger is pulled that causes like a video to be sent to Martin Lawrence and Will Smith from their dead boss, saying like, if you're watching this, I'm dead, and most likely I'm being framed for something I didn't do, so I need you two to figure it out. And then we get a very, what's that movie with Bette Midler? Jinxed. Mm-hmm. It's, the ending of that movie, like that little scavenger hunt she went on was more complicated than this one. They figured it out very easily, which seems so stupid because the dead captain is doing this to make sure that no one knows what he's doing. But it was very easy to figure out.
Yes. And
the bulk of the movie is them trying to figure out who's responsible. But as the audience, we already know it's Eric Dane, the bad guy. But Will Smith realizes that he needs his son, who's currently in prison, to help because he can ID the person who arranged the hit against the captain,
which was Eric Dane. Mm-hmm.
I thought that was stupid.
Very.
That like we know immediately who it is, so it's
there's no suspense.
There's no
tension. Yeah.
But so the three of them, Will Smith, Martin Lawrence, and Will Smith's son Armando, go to find.
Well, they become fugitives.
They become fugitives, which is very mild. Like it doesn't seem like anyone's really looking for them. And then they do find Eric Dane, but the other side story is that Eric Dane has kidnapped not only Will Smith's new wife, but the captain's granddaughter.
Yes. And the captain's daughter, played by Rhea Seehorn, has a considerable grudge against Armand, Will Smith's son, because he killed her father.
Oh, is it Armand? I'm saying Armando.
No, sorry, it is Armando.
Oh,
yeah.
And I thought the performance of the daughter as the U.S. Marshal was not strong.
That white lady's acting is bad. It's really bad.
Of course, they rescue the granddaughter and Will Smith's wife, and Eric Dane ends up getting killed. There's also Will Smith and Martin Lawrence's current boss, this lady.
Oh, you could have it. They say the name Rita a lot in this script.
Yeah, you could have a game counting it.
But Paula Nunez, whose character, I don't remember this at all, but used to date Will Smith.
I didn't remember that either. But now she's dating some guy who's running for mayor who works for like the Department of Justice or something.
There's a joint task force, yes.
And he's played by the guy from, what do I know him from?
Probably the original Fantastic
Yes.
Four, Ian Graffoyd, who's also in the TV set with Sigourney Weaver, and I think he did an adaptation of Captain Horatio Hornblower or something like that.
I will say, I thought he looked great. But he is the one who's like the, what do you call it when someone is leaking information?
The mole.
The mole. So the current captain, who is trustworthy and believes Martin Lawrence and Will Smith, she's in a relationship with the mole. So he gets found out, and all's well that ends well.
There's
That's
an albino alligator.
We'll get to it.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I'm just going to go through my notes. The opening I thought was so corny. I'm so tired of, like, my recollection of the last movie and then this one is that Will Smith likes to drive Porsches. And he drives erratically. And so the opening of the film is him driving crazy with Martin Lawrence in the passenger seat, looking like hell, which we'll get back to. And he's saying, like, you're going to make me sick driving like this. You need to pull over. I need some ginger ale. And Will Smith pulls over, lets Martin out. And then Martin goes crazy in the liquor store buying snacks, which I thought... Anyway, the liquor store gets robbed.
That's some Scooby-Doo shit right
It
there.
is, but the liquor store gets robbed and the two of them stop the burglar. But the reason I'm saying Will Smith looks like hell is because he looks so bad that they have to address it within the script.
You mean Martin Lawrence?
I'm sorry, Martin Lawrence. So his entire characterization is that he's just like a little hungry hippo.
Yes. In that opening scene kind of reminded me of the Charles Bronson Death Wish films, because in that movie where his wife is raped and killed, I don't quite remember, but everywhere Charles Bronson goes, there's crime, there's mugging. Like, that's like, so as soon as he goes into a convenience store, it's...
So then right after that, we get Will Smith's wedding to this lady who I don't recognize from the last movie.
Melanie Labarde playing Christine.
Their wedding vows were the most awkward-ass vows I've ever heard.
Well, we only get hers.
Well, we hear hers, and it sounds like she's just rambling. And, okay, I think the movie is shot nicely, but I think the editing is so jarring. Like, just, it almost feels like they shot as much as they could under some constraints, and then the poor editor had to like try to piece it together. But we see this lady giving her vows, which sounded like gibberish to me. And then all of a sudden we cut to the priest going, I now pronounce you man and wife. What? It sounded like she was talking to her therapist or giving some testimony at church. I don't know. But they get married, and then Martin Lawrence gets out on the dance floor after he gives his best man speech, starts dancing, and has a heart attack. And then we get this really awkward moment where he has a near death, like he's technically died. So he like goes into the light and
which looks like the sunken place.
And we see like a sequence where he sees his old captain, which I thought was so cool.
With a macaw or something. And the captain, and Pantaleano tells him it's not your time. That felt very Lion King.
The part that bothered me about it is like, I promise everyone who can hear my voice that when I die, I'm not going to be thinking about my boss. Like,
oh,
I mean,
hell
you know
no.
what I mean? And then after he comes back and is telling Will Smith, like, I died and I know that, like I saw all these things and all these past lives. And he cites like specific things he saw. Why? So then why as the audience do we only see his boss saying like, it's not your time to die? Wouldn't it be like his dead mama or another loved one? Or I just thought that was so poorly done.
Or some kind of secret, something? No, nothing.
It's also after his near-death or his seeing the light that he tells Will Smith that they're soulmates and that they've spent many lifetimes together And then he says at one point Will Smith was like his donkey. And
So it's basically like Shirley MacLaine with any co-star she's ever had.
the comedy writing is not where it needs to. I think that there's no way any comedy writers had anything to do with this. Because I feel like if a comedy writer did take a stab at this, they could have written a better comedy on the toilet in 15 minutes.
Oh, for sure.
Than what we got in this
is the
2-hour film.
The Bad Boys for Life. Chris Bremner returning, who also has written another terrible film between that called The Man from Toronto, which I thought was insipid. And also Will Beall, who wrote the first Aquaman, as well as Gangster Squad. And I don't feel attuned to the kind of storytelling needed to make this interesting.
So some positives. John Sally is in the movie playing, and I like John Sally. He's playing someone who knew the dead captain who's like holds the key to like a major clue.
He's the best part, actually.
And I wrote down that he's the best part.
Yeah.
He only is on screen for 45 seconds?
If even, yeah.
And I thought that he was more entertaining and more funny than Will Smith and Martin Lawrence combined.
Yeah.
He just is like, he seems to, I don't know, it's like I could have just used his energy. Then I noted that a couple of good action sequences aren't enough. Those 2 action sequences aren't even with Martin Lawrence or Will Smith. The first one is with Martin Lawrence's son, where he defends
himself in the prison yard.
No, Martin Lawrence's son defends his family at the house.
Oh, okay.
He's like
Will Smith's son, I think, had a good scene.
He's the veteran. Like he's a armed forces member who defends his family. I thought that was a really good action sequence. And the second good action sequence is Will Smith's son in the prison yard, and that was pretty violent.
Yes.
So I find it funny that the 2 best action sequences are not from the stars, which makes me think that there's going to be a Bad Boys 5 with the 2 sons, because spoiler alert, the Armando gets away. And then I thought the most entertaining character was also not the leads. It was John Sally.
I agree. Yeah, if it makes money, I'm sure there will be a 5th one. But and then we have some side characters: Alexander Ludwig and Vanessa Hudgens as Kelly, who has nothing to do. I don't know what Vanessa's been up to. I hope she's still into voguing, but I don't know why she was interested.
She had nothing to do. And then in this movie we find out that she and like the muscle milk guy, what's his name?
Alexander Ludwig Dorn.
I like him. I mean, he seems amusing to a degree. I guess like fun to look at, but yeah, I don't know why we needed her and him. I'm so confused with like all the resources they have. You know what it made me think of? Like, first of all, does everyone in the Miami Police Department make 7 figures? Then it made me think of that recent story where the Miami Beach Police Department got like some bad PR because they have a Rolls-Royce police cruiser, which they didn't pay for, it was donated, but it was to promote like how they have the best for the best.
Sure.
So then I was like...
I don't know, if I was internal affairs and saw where any of these people lived, I would be checking into...
It's very questionable.
How they were really making their money.
And also at the point where Will Smith and Martin Lawrence are considered fugitives, Vanessa Hudgens and her little boyfriend, the muscle guy, they're still able to use all their resources for them. Does that make sense to you?
No.
Wouldn't they get shut down?
You would think so. You would think so. DJ Khaled is also in it.
Oh, I put the best part of the movie is seeing DJ Khaled get smashed by a minivan.
And then set on fire.
Because I don't care.
It's kind of like Taylor Swift getting thrown under the wheels of a car in Amsterdam.
So there's a scene that you would think would be really cool where Eric Dane has taken over the helicopter that is transporting Armando. Mm-hmm. And Will Smith and Martin Lawrence are on board. And I just thought that sequence felt so chaotic and random. And there's a moment where like, also Martin Lawrence's character after his near-death experience, because I remember from the last movie that he's very much like, I don't want to be active, I don't want to run, I don't want to put myself in danger. And in this movie, because he believes that he can't die, because it wasn't his time or it's not his time, he's being more bold with his choices. But the problem is that we also spend the entire movie making him seem like a lazy fat ass. So watching him in these action sequences where it's clearly a stunt double seems crazy. And then the helicopter scene, like The helicopter's like spiraling out of control. It's been open, so people are flying out of it. And Armando is in a cage. And Martin Lawrence is holding the cage in place by a rope so it doesn't fall out of the airplane. And there's just, like, I know that we're supposed to suspend disbelief, but I feel like if you're going to do Fast and Furious stuff, then this film needs to be over the top. And it's not.
His hands would have been shredded also from that rope. Both him and Will Smith are holding onto that rope at one point, but...
There's a point where Armando is flying the helicopter because the pilots have been killed. And I believe it's Martin Lawrence who says, where did you learn how to fly? And Armando says, I'm a drug dealer. What?
There's another line that I wrote down when the U.S. Marshal lady is looking for her daughter, and she's like, right now the whole world is my jurisdiction.
Ugh.
Okay.
So now they're fugitives on the run. It wasn't clear to me where Armando was to pick him up in a helicopter to fly him back to Miami. Because when the helicopter crashes, they end up in what looks like the swamps.
Yeah, and they run into some...
And they run into some like hillbilly type guys, and these guys hold them at gunpoint. And then kind of an amusing scene as they call them like, what are you boys doing? And Martin is saying like, well, that's racist to call us boys. You think we're stealing, like you think we stole your clothes? These are our clothes, but Martin hasn't read or seen what's on the clothes. So like the shirt he's wearing says like, I'm a proud white boy or something. And then Will Smith's shirt has Reba McEntire on it. And then these guys want them to prove it's their clothes by singing a Reba song. It wasn't as funny as I think it should be. So then they need help. So they decide to go to a strip club to meet Tiffany Haddish. And I have to say, she was a bright spot in the movie.
Strangely, yes.
Although when we first see her, it made me think of Got to Be Real when someone says, like, look at her sitting there looking like Lou Nail.
I thought her demeanor was not unlike Catherine Hunter as the Madame Brothel in Poor Things a little bit as well.
I wrote down this movie could have been called Bad Boys Snacks for Life.
Or Soulmates. Bad Boys Soulmates.
Or Soulmates. Yeah, it's just so many references to... We get like 7 references to Martin Lawrence wanting snacks.
Yes, and not wanting to give up his snacks and having cameras set up in his kitchen to see who's eating his snacks. That and a lot of Rita.
When the captain, her boyfriend, the Fantastic Four guy, when she finds out that he's corrupt, she's like, why did you do this? But really she's just stalling him to hear him talk so they can record his voice to do like a deep fake. Mm-hmm. But anyway, this fool says that he did it because them being in collusion with the cartel is what kept, like after 9/11, that's what kept further terrorist attacks. Who wrote this?
Chris Bremner and Will Beall.
I just feel like saying something like that is so out of control. Like, I mean, because it's not a serious movie where you could actually like try to link these things together. It's just like these lines are terrible.
It's just stupid. It's just really dumb.
At one point, I believe it's Will Smith's wife sees Eric Dane's hand. And as the audience, I couldn't tell what his hands looked like. They look normal, but she goes, what's wrong with your hand? And he goes like this. And again, his hand looks normal.
Well, it looked like it had undergone some kind of trauma.
Really? I couldn't tell.
A little bit. Yeah.
I also wasn't wearing my glasses. But he goes, oh, I had a Colombian manicure. It's the most pain
you can experience without dying.
You can experience without dying, which basically means like someone pulls your nails out.
And then dumps...
I've actually pulled someone's nails out. Long story, I'm not going to get into it. And I've had a nail pulled out. It's not the most pain you could feel. I've had worse pain.
I'd imagine childbirth might be worse.
I thought that was such a weird thing to... Because all we see is someone take pliers and pull a nail off.
Well, it was written by 2 men that, you know...
You already alluded to the albino alligator. So Eric Dane's hideout is this old alligator like theme park.
Which reminded me of Joe Wright's Hannah, where Cate Blanchett is lurking as well.
And I thought for sure the albino alligator was going to be the demise of Eric Dane. It's not. It's the demise of the Fantastic Four gentlemen.
Did you think of that Kevin Spacey movie at all?
With Faye Dunaway?
Bowgator. He got a bowgator.
Okay, another element to this story that I thought was corny, in addition to Martin Lawrence's near-death experience and all these visions from beyond whatever, I thought were corny. Especially, we see the dead captain a couple times, but now they have Will Smith having panic attacks. He has like 3 of them.
And one of them at an integral moment where he can take a shot to kill Eric Dane. And
Oh, that drove me crazy.
Stupid. Very dumb.
He refuses to take the shot to kill Eric Dane because he might hit his wife. But then as the audience, we see that it looks like a clear shot. And also
clear.
His son, who he seems to care about, is underwater, and he's being... Like, Will Smith is being told, like, you need to hurry up because the alligators are going to get your son. He still won't take the shot. Of course, things go left. But we see that this albino alligator ends up eating the Fantastic Four guy, but not before Martin Lawrence falls into the water with the albino alligator. But because he still thinks that he's invincible, he tries to, like, stop the alligator with mind control. And the alligator bites him.
Of course. And then Will Smith jumps in, much like he did in Emancipation, and wrestles around with it.
But that alligator scene with Martin Lawrence was stupid because that alligator, we're told, is 17 feet long, weighs 900 pounds, and has probably gotten bigger since the last time they saw it. This thing is huge. And it grabs onto Martin's arm, not unlike when the cat bites me. But then when we see it attack the soon-to-be mayor, the Fantastic Four guy...
Lockwood.
That thing does what we know alligators to do. It grabs onto him and starts rolling. I thought that was stupid.
Well, yeah, because it's just nonsense. It's just utter nonsense. Like I don't know who is trying to be entertained. Like, who are these filmmakers trying to entertain with this?
Well, then getting to my last note, the final scene of the film after, like, all is well, we get a barbecue, like, sequence at the park. And that scene fully felt like it would be a deleted scene on a DVD.
Oh, it's bad.
It's not... You know what I kept thinking? Oh, they're trying to set up the son. Like, I think there will be another Bad Boys movie with the two sons.
I hope not.
The only other thing I wanted to say is it's a shame that, like, these two actors, like, comedic actors who I can't think of a movie they've done in the last few years that I thought was funny, but, like, Martin Lawrence in the late 90s and early 2000s had a string of, like, funny, like, cop crime movies, and all of those feel more fresh and funny to me than this Bad Boys movie.
I agree.
And I think I expected Will Smith to come back a little harder.
Well, demand some better writing, perhaps?
After the Oscars incident, the bad PR.
Like, he needed something strong.
This is not it. No. What would you give Bad Boys Ride or Die?
1.5.
Yeah, it's a miss. I would have walked out of the theater had I not had to talk about it later. I would give it 1.5 out of 5. Join us on Patreon and listen to our podcast. Bye.